Hello, welcome. This is day 2 of the Global Vision Quest. Oh my goodness, I was up a lot of the night just being with the vision that came through during our first guided visualization. I'm curious for yourself if you've been integrating that, what's coming up for you. So we are coming in from all over the world. Let us know in the comments where you are. Where are you in this earth, this globe? I see Denmark, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Florida. We got a lot of Europe and US and France and Canada. As always, taking a moment to really honor the land where you are. Where are you on this earth? And just letting yourself feel the support of the place in which you are growing at this time, and also the blessing of us being able to connect all over the world. So today we are going to be going into discussions, panel discussions with incredible people with very different backgrounds and experiences, with the iconic essence and claiming the power of their iconic essence and putting it into action. And so for this morning, I invite you to, of course, always have your journal handy if you want to take notes. There is a section for you to take notes for these panel discussions, because hearing other people's stories, I find whenever I find searching on YouTube or something, I'm looking for interviews, I'm looking for things. I like hearing people's stories because you get to integrate something, or it's like watching a movie or a TV show where you see someone else's experience and it deepens something within yourself, or you open up, wow, I never knew that was possible. And then suddenly that becomes possible for you because you've witnessed it, or it unlocks something in you. Hearing people's experiences and allowing that to nourish you and feed your own unfolding. So have your journal handy so you can take down notes and insights and sparks of inspiration, and it may even clarify something in your vision for your own life. All right. So for this topic this morning, we are going to be exploring claiming the power of your iconic essence. And so I'd like to welcome on our panel so you can meet them. And also for everyone who is speaking in these panels in this morning and as well as in the afternoon, there's also an interview that is with that person just on their own, and that is on the Global Vision Quest website. So we have links in the description for that. And if you're on the website, you will see the photos of everyone below the video, and check that out. You can learn about each person. Everyone really has so much inspiration and wisdom. So you can check that out to learn more about each person. All right. So I'd like to welcome on, I'm going to go through and bring mom one at a time. I'd like to start with Abiola Abrams. Hey, Abiola.
Hey,
so,
guys.
Hey, hello. So, Abiola, you have your new book, From Imagination to Reality, that has been birthed. It's like coming out and feels like another layer of your iconic essence. Anything you'd like to say about this new creation of yours that has come from imagination to reality?
Yes. Yes. So I'm really excited right now. What's bubbling up for me is basking in the power of the divine feminine, reclaiming and reimagining the power of the divine feminine. So right now I have, as you said, the new book From Imagination to Reality, which is a channeled work of this manifestation master who lived 100 years ago in New York. He was an Ethiopian rabbi, and also a new deck named Faces of Oshun Oracle deck. And all of this work right now is about really reclaiming, stepping into our power and becoming who we were born to be. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
Yeah, this is the topic. We're going to go a lot into all of this for sure. Thank you. All right. I'd like to welcome on Ali Katz. Hey, Ali. Welcome.
Hi, great to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. There's so many layers of things that we're going to get into with you on. You're like a business money, just like a queen. I'm excited to go into things around money dysmorphia and really how you have claimed your iconic essence and all this. Just to get us kind of warmed up, what would you like to share on the idea of, first, I think money dysmorphia is kind of coming into the field. What, like that's going to weave in somehow. What is that exactly?
Sure. Before I answer that, I'll just say that you said the word queen, and what I'm really claiming, and I think this is relevant to my iconic essence and what you really supported me with so many years ago, is the term queen, which is a combination of a queen and king, because I really live both of those archetypes throughout my reality, queen and king. And that's really different to me than the standard queen archetype, and very different than the standard king archetype. So we can certainly talk about that. And money dysmorphia is a dis-ease, not officially in the DSM, though I am writing a book about it, that I think many of us are suffering with, sometimes blindly. Sometimes, we hear it and we're like, oh yeah, I have that. And it is the distorted view that we have around our financial reality, both at the individual and collective level, that causes us to make poor choices that sacrifice our non-renewable resources of time, energy, and attention individually, and then of course collectively at the planetary level, in service to money, which is infinitely renewable. When we know how to use our time, energy, and attention, when we know how to use our resources. And in fact, Laura, we could talk about this more later too. You are one of my primary examples that I use in my journey to financial liberation process. And I don't know that you know that. You'll see yourself.
I didn't know that.
When it comes out, and we could certainly talk about it today, because your story of really how you were earning money before you knew what was yours to do is a key piece of the journey to financial liberation. And the journey to financial liberation, just to bring that into context, is the medicine for the dis-ease of money dysmorphia.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. Okay, we got okay, the thing about the queen and the king and all that, I mean, yes, and that, and then the reason why I wanted to mention the money dysmorphia piece is because I think when it comes to claiming our iconic essence, money is usually one of the things that is the tripping thing. Like we trip on that. And as if almost, I don't think we want to use it as an excuse, but it's like, oh, if I had the money, I would do this. So I really am excited to weave that in and see how that relates. So much to talk about there. And how cool, I didn't know that I was an example.
You are.
Very interesting. All right, cool. All right, I'd like to welcome on Anjel B. Hartwell. Hello, Anjel.
Hello, Laura.
Hey. So you've got like this painting behind you, and you kind of shared a little bit about that before. What is the relevance of that in our topic today of claiming the power of your iconic essence?
Right. So this painting behind me is called Playing with the Primal Fires of Creation Flow Codes. And it was brought through me back right before Corona happened. And I made this series of paintings that were called the flow codes. And the codes are here to support us as we make this evolutionary journey into claiming our authentic power and claiming our iconic essence. And the primal codes wanted to be here today. And so I set myself up. Usually my office is set up in front of my podcasting space where I podcast out to the whole world. So today, though, the Primal Fires of Creation Flow Codes wanted to be here. And so that's why I'm sitting in front of them here today.
Happy you are here, and the painting as well. Very cool. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. I'd like to welcome on Lori A. Andrus. Hello, Lori.
Hi, Laura.
Crystal woman. Crystal. So, Laura, we're going to probably include the crystals. They're going to come into the conversation, I'm certain. Any message that the crystal energy and your ability, your wisdom, and to be able to decode them, any message from the crystals to warm us up, get us started on this topic of claiming the power of our iconic essence?
Mm-hmm. I love that. So as I was tuning in before we sat down, there were a lot that came forward. They were very excited about today's conversation. But the three that really jumped out were malachite, amethyst, specifically Ontario amethyst, and lepidolite. And the three of them really anchored in a couple core messages. And one was around really trusting our inner wisdom and just cultivating the relationship with self to trust our own wisdom, our own knowing, and really being able to filter all of the external things going on in the world, and filter them through our own knowing, our own inner wisdom, truth, and really land in what is aligned and right for us. And the next piece that really came in was around emotions and the potency of our emotions in navigating and filtering everything that's coming in during this time, and allowing our emotions to flow, but also being able to filter what is ours and what is another's. What is the external world? What's the storyline that is going on externally that is maybe confusing what is really true within ourselves, and being able to find that ability to discern and land back in our own knowing. So, yeah.
Gosh, thank you. Yeah, I'm letting that come in. Thank you. All right, Marta Barrerras, I'd love to welcome you on. This is our full panel here now. Marta, so great to see you. And you've also got crystals there with you as well. And the work you do in the world of really almost like working with the earth and crystals and rocks, almost like a feng shui for the planet. Anything you could say to help us understand it's like almost like invisible work, but it's like kind of moving mountains, literally, to share a little bit about the work that you do.
Aloha everybody. I'm here on the big island of Hawaii, and I was sharing with you ladies that the volcano has been erupting here. We've gone through 11 episodes of creative energy coming to the surface. I live on a power spot. I live and breathe where the Earth's evolutionary impulse moves from the center up to the surface. And where I live is an island that is mostly crystalline lava. And that lava, because it's the information from the earth coming from the center out to the surface, is filled with information for the future. Information for evolution. So I have 4 generations of family roots here. And my grandfather was a medicine man and a shaman in his village. So I grew up with this innate iconic essence always with me. How that evolved is that I lived in an ashram for many years, studied feng shui, and pulled together a methodology that is like a very evolved version of feng shui, where I work with, at this point, very high-level manifestors, powerful, successful people in the world. They usually live on power spots. So I work with them in their lives with transformational methodologies to feng shui their lives. But I also work with their homes and transform them into living portals of healing and manifestation. And as I do that, I'm also working with the resonance of the earth, the landforms around them, the mountains, the ocean, the waterways, and I use big crystals like acupuncture needles to help them in their lives. But I'm also simultaneously working with the ley line where they live. And when all of our ley lines are cleared and harmonized, this is our home, this is our collective feng shui, is the energy that runs beneath our feet. So and I've worked on quite a few ley lines now, I've been doing this for 30 years. When all of those ley lines are harmonized and cleared and connected, that affects every single person on this planet. So yes, it's invisible, but yes, it's very powerful. And it is like moving mountains. Sometimes I lose nights of sleep as well, but it's very much worth it.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I can feel the transmission of that. I think what is so fascinating about this conversation around the iconic essence and claiming the power of the iconic essence is we are all so unique, right? Like everyone, if you really get the chance to talk to someone, it's mind blowing, someone's journey. Everyone, I think everyone, I know for me, I've had so many lifetimes within this life. And that's not even counting if there are other lives, which there probably are. But just we live so much. We have so much wisdom and story and experience. So our iconic essence is our uniqueness, but it's our uniqueness that is cultivated through our life experience. And so in our conversation today, all of us have different things that we do, different ways that we live and all of that. So, and everyone, all of us listening, all of it, let yourself own what is your uniqueness, your story, your way, and then learning and getting sparks from other people. What I'd like to start with in our panel discussion here is this idea of the iconic essence, like kind of what is it? And then how do we actually claim it? How do we claim it? Like if it's innate, how do we claim it? And I'll say something in my own experience and I'll call upon each of you to share your thoughts on this. For myself, I definitely was always super creative and it was very easy for me to go into imagination. And I think I had like a foot in another world and a foot in this world at the same time, kind of always. And in my life, that was challenging to live like that. But as I could figure it out, it actually became this profound blessing where it's like, oh, I could like live in two worlds at once and I can like be the bridge between them. And so claiming it for me was recognizing what I am, what I naturally am, which had a gift and a challenge, and then figuring out how to work with that. And kind of like, that's been the journey. So I want to call upon Abiola, because you do have this book, From Imagination to Reality, which in a way is a type of claiming of something. Like imagination is like a dream. And then the reality, it's like claiming what we desire and bringing it into reality for yourself and your own iconic essence. And I just see you as a glowing, radiant being, but I'm curious how you would describe your own iconic essence. How have you claimed your radiance, your magic, your abilities?
I love this question, especially the way that you phrased it, because of course, we didn't plan this. I had no idea that you would ask this, but I just pulled a card from my Oracle deck and look, the colors, like it looks like the frame of like where you are right now. I don't know if you can see that. And it's Oshun the Creatrix, the energy of creativity, artistic expression, and breakthroughs, which is exactly what we are imagining into reality right now. And so for me, my iconic essence, which I believe for all of us is the reclamation of our divine truth. My iconic essence was releasing the way that I had been taught and trained to perform who I am and stepping into actually being who I am. And I think that for many of us, that's a switch that we have to make and something that we may not even be aware of. That many of us are taught, the norms of our family, the norms of our community, our society, our country, or whatever it is, our background, the accepted ways to behave, to show up, to talk, to dress, to act, to work, to interact with money, love, just the way that the paradigm that we have, how we see the world and see our place within it. And especially as people who are, women who are assigned female at birth, who are women, we are taught very much to be pleasing to others, to not make other people uncomfortable, and certainly not even to make ourselves uncomfortable with our desires, with our truths, with the things that we want to imagine and birth into being. And our creativity, for every single person, every single one of us is creative, whether you consider yourself to be an artist or a creative person or not. Our creativity is the sacred medicine that allows us to birth not only whatever the end product is of your creativity, but also to birth ourselves into being. Your creativity, if you are watching this, it is not by accident. Your creativity is a revolutionary act that says, here I am. My voice matters. This is who I am. And as a declaration, not to yourself, but to the universe of who you are, and who you were born to be. And so for me, I feel very much that that's not only what my iconic essence journey is, but I feel that for all of us, you know, coming back home to ourselves involves giving up, releasing the any performative aspect of our being, and really just learning how to be unapologetically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Amazing, amazing. I'd like to weave in Angel and something, you know, Abiola, as you were speaking, just this idea of like, it's our innate who we are, right? It's like, it's who we are, and letting ourselves be that without a performance, without having to like be what someone else thinks we need to be, and being what we are, you know, letting that kind of come through us from the inside out. And so, Angel, I'd like to weave in here because, you know, you've gone through so many alchemical, full-on transformations. And I would love for you to share whatever you'd like to share about those all these transformations, and how does that connect to claiming the power of your iconic essence?
Yeah. Well, so I spent the first 20 years of my career life in the real estate business and was the national chairperson of my trade association before I had a spiritual awakening. And that spiritual awakening led me into the shamanic path. It led me into an experience of discovering all these latent parts of myself. My artist arrived, my healer arrived, my hands turned on. You know, my performer arrived. I have an award-winning crystal singing bowl CD. I began working with stones and crystals. I began working with sound, using the sound of my voice. At one point, I was doing concerts where I was toning the bodies, the light bodies of all of the people in this gigantic expo space. And then I ended up in the online space, and in the many iterations, I've actually changed my name legally 3 times in the last, since 2004. I've changed my name legally. And each of those name changes, interestingly enough, when I was in the new Icon movie, I was the first name, I was Amethyst Wildfire. And in the process of going through the initiation that we went through to claim our iconic essence in the new Icon movie, within months, I had a huge life rupture and my name changed again. And what I was doing in the world changed again. And then in the Corona period, I ended up in Allie's Eyes Wide Open community, and my name changed again because it was time. And so, you know, I think I want to speak about this power of creation again, as Abiola was mentioning. When you are really claiming your iconic essence, you 100% across all time and space, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what the laws say, no matter what the community says, no matter what the societal structure says, you are going to embody and take action on and create your own life. You're going to create a life, hopefully, that's a work of art, right? And so for me, claiming my iconic essence and claiming the power of it really has now, in retrospect, multiple stages. And when Angel B. Hartwell came in, it became clear to me that I now embody this signature that has a foothold in the divine with the name Angel. In this realm, the bee is like the buzzy bee, and the heart, H-A-R-T, is the deer, and then the well is in the lower world. So my iconic essence is embodied in all 3 realms with this name. And from that embodiment, when that came in, then it became clear to me that not only do I need to embody my own iconic essence fully and continue to be the creator that I'm here to be, and continue to listen into what is the next step, what is the evolved expression. But it also became clear to me that it was time for me to be a weaver and to weave together this web of connection with others who are embodying their iconic essence. And so that's where the podcasting came in. And so I actually drew a card today from the Creativity Oracle by Amy Zerner and Monty Farber. And the card is counsel. And so here's the card, the back of the card. And it says, seek out the counsel of those whose lives and creative work you admire most. And what I want to say here is it's not just about self-actualizing, but it's about collectively actualizing a more evolved world for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And, this idea that, in what you're sharing, there's many things. One that I'd like to highlight in that is that the name is like, it's like an outfit in a way that we wear. And yet the essence comes through that, like who's wearing the dress, right? Like, it's like that energy comes through. And then, the process of changing a name, it's like it's like giving it tailoring it to the refinement as you're evolving in a way. And so it's just a really interesting experience. And just on that note, as you have changed your name and gone through those transformations, did people relate to you differently? Or did you feel like you were introducing yourself like literally as a new person, or like just anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, and so, yeah, so the name is a signature. It's a vibrational signature. We sign our signature, right? And so it is sending out a specific vibration into the world. And, when I changed my name to Amethyst Wildfire, the first big name change after the divorce name changes, I've actually changed my name 5 times. But when I changed my name to Amethyst Wildfire, it was very repulsive to a lot of people. I live in a pretty conservative part of the country, not super conservative, but, it's New England. It's pretty puritanical. They burned the witches here. So, changing my name to Amethyst Wildfire was pretty radical, certainly back in 2004. It was very radical. And then when I changed my name to Emerald Green Forest, what happened there was, there was this major life rupture. And I heard, your name is changing. I was like, okay, I've already done it once. I can do it again. And so that phase of my life, that was a 4-year phase. And that was really a phase where I began to turn inward and start to care for myself. Like, that whole 4-year phase was really about getting in touch with my physical body and making sure that I was healthy. And, of course, whenever you make a significant change, you are going to repel some people, but then you're going to attract others. You're going to bring in those people who are most aligned to be in communion and in counsel with. And then finally, when Anjel B. Hartwell came in, it was interesting because I was in Allie's group. And somebody suggested after I posted something about my journey, which included, some pretty significant trauma, they said to me, you need to go see a psychologist. You need to go see a psychotherapist. So I ended up going to see my old psychotherapist, and she said, did you ever do numerology on this name, Emerald Peaceful Green Forest? And I hadn't. So when I did, they told me that that name was bad for my health, bad for my money, bad for relationships, and that I would create things and then they would be just ready to come to fruition and somebody would come and take it away. And that was what I was living. And so I said, well, I don't need that name. So Anjel B. Hartwell, I actually chose from names that were given to me by this organization called the Caballerian Organization. And so this is the name I've given to myself, which, the other 2 came in spiritually. This is the name I've given to myself. And as soon as I did, within like 5 days, I had a $25,000 client. So, there's a lot that can happen when you change your signature.
Well, I think it's also about claiming, right? Like you're claiming what the energy that you're choosing to express and embody, right? And so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'd like to weave in Allie. You were mentioning that Anjel was in your group at the time when that was happening. And Ali, you yourself have also had different name experiences. And, it's almost like, and I remember when you were here in the studio, there was a moment where there was like a union that happened in your heart where different aspects of yourself, it felt like could sort of finally like coexist or something. And it felt like it landed something. I'm curious for you, anything you'd like to say about that, kind of like claiming who you are, even though there are many parts. We do have different aspects of ourselves, but it doesn't mean that the iconic essence is just one part. The iconic essence is really a union of bringing ourselves into like the next flowering of our wholeness. Anything you'd like to say about your own claiming of yourself, your iconic essence?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And yes, as you noted, I've been through a whole naming process, much in the same way that Anjel describes, and it really harkens back to this word that I brought up at the beginning, this queen king archetype, which is the union of the masculine and feminine inside of myself. And Ali Katz is so much a representation of that, because neither of those names, Ali or Katz, is what I was born with. I was born Alexis W. Martin, but my father had the last name Katz. And for many years, I was Ali Shanti as the second name that I took on after my married name, Alexis Neely, when I began to unravel the masculine dynamic of Alexis Martin Neely, attorney and counselor at law and author of the best-selling book, Wear Clean Underwear. I can hear that resonating in my head, being spoken by the woman introducing me on the Today Show, almost 20 years ago, probably. And it's a very distinct, set of words and tone for Alexis Martin Neely, right? Da, 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 da. And then I became Ali Shanti, which was so soft and so feminine. And these two were at war for a long time. And so, Laura, what you're describing as this divine union was really the beginning of a reconciliation and an integration between the two, because I do believe that everything that we see outside of ourselves is a reflection of our own internal consciousness. And so if I was seeing and experiencing war inside of myself, then of course I'm going to be experiencing that outside of myself in so many different ways. And how can I actually create harmony? And how can I live in harmony if I'm not in harmony? And so ultimately, through my journey, including the time with you and other experiences that I had, the name Ali Katz came. Interestingly, the name Ali Katz came in 2015. I was in the jungle here in Costa Rica, but I didn't actually step into the name until 2019. I wasn't ready, but I held it in my heart. I even registered the URL and the email addresses. I knew that I would eventually take the name, but at that time I was still living Alexis Neely and Ali Shanti out in the world, and I could not imagine how I could have a third name. That just didn't seem possible for me at that time. But I knew, or I believed, that at some time it would occur. And actually, when I was walking in the jungle, I had a death experience where I realized that parts of me wanted to die and a part of me wanted to live, and that's how Ali Katz came. And I knew that Ali Katz was holding the frequency of that which I would become, which is what I am now, the integration, the queen energy, which I'm still learning to work with right now. How do I be a queen and a king? How does that change so many things about how I be in the world, how I build my ecosystem, how I build my enterprise? We hit 10 million of revenue last year, which is a massive thing to hold. Mm-hmm. And how do I hold it as a queen? Neither a queen or a king, but a both and. And so that's really the next piece that I'm working with in my own, evolution of all of this.
Yeah. Well, congratulations in all of that. Congratulations in that reconciliation and coming to that understanding of these different aspects and seeing how they can come together. And then also in business, it's amazing how, it feels like the fruit of that union, the success that you're experiencing in your business, because for any business, there is a masculine and a feminine, right? There's like organization, structures, and systems. And then there's also like a magic, there's like an energy current that's like an organic force that goes through it. And it's like, how will they work together? Because if it's just all energy and all force, then often there's no structure. And then people kind of suffer on that level. Or if they're all structure, then they're starving for the magic. And they can get a little bit rigid in that. And so
it's interesting that you use that word. I'll just close with this for right now, which is that I created something called Practical Magic, and I got the trademark for it. And it's been just an annual thing that I've done, but my COO and I are actually building a full entrepreneurial operating system like EOS, or one of those very masculine, operating systems on the Practical Magic framework, so that we can have a feminine operating system that infuses the very practical aspects as well as the magical aspects, hence Practical Magic.
Mm-hmm. And to me, that is the future, right? Like that is the future.
I hope so.
Yeah. When I think about the iconic essence, I feel like there is an aspect of a death that happens when we claim it. There's an aspect of a birth. There's an aspect of different aspects of ourself coming into union. And I think that the journey is navigating, all of us in our own unique ways. How do we navigate whatever needs to die? Like there's something that, and that's not a bad thing. You look in nature, there's death happening all the time, just as much as there's life. But there will be something that sort of like just sheds, the skin will shed. And then there's something navigating the birth of what we're becoming. And then also kind of discovering these different parts of ourselves, masculine, feminine. For myself, it was kind of like being on earth and being in another realm. I've had to figure out how do those ones like come together? How does that work? But I think that that's the journey, and that those are the layers in claiming the power of our iconic essence. So Marta, I would like to weave you in on this, because the work that you do, you're working with the energies, like with the ley lines and the crystals and the feng shui, and that's working for an individual life, but it's also working on a global scale. And I'm curious, how does that relate to, like, we're talking about this topic of claiming the power of our iconic essence. What would be the ley lines in us that, like, what kind of needs, like, what crystals need to line up in the ley lines of our being and our life in order for us to, like, sing our song in the world and be in the flow? I'd love to hear your perspective on that idea.
Yeah, well, I love hearing everybody's story. Your iconic essence is with you at birth. It is our birthright. It is the path to the expression of your iconic essence in the world that truly is a path to wholeness. And it is part of the soul's ultimate destiny. So I love how Ali was talking about pulling together all the fragments of who she is and coming back into this path of wholeness. And I would say that on a very fundamental level, because I work with people who are very iconic in the world, who are always finding their next evolution. We're finding their next evolution of their expression in the world. And one of the fundamental premises is to honor your uniqueness. When you honor your uniqueness, the path will be revealed to you to your superpowers. And oftentimes, that uniqueness, it's something within you. And it's something that you don't necessarily see as a superpower in the beginning. You might see it as a limitation or a flaw. or a weakness in the eyes of modern society. So to honor your uniqueness takes courage. It takes deep inner strength and faith in something bigger than us, whether it's your higher self or your ancestors or something that will always be there to embrace your uniqueness, because that is a very tender, pure space within you. And so honoring that, I would say, is a first step into finding your superpowers. And there's wholeness in those superpowers. My uniqueness was, I had this deep, deep sensitivity when I was young with my upbringing, and I could not go to university. I couldn't even go to high school. I went to university early and then decided not to go to the elite one because my nervous system could not do anything that was involved in the collective conditioning. And to me, that was a limitation in the beginning. It took a lot of courage to make that decision at a young age. Yoga wasn't popular in the world. And, I was sort of at the leading edge of this awakening movement. And when I made that decision, the universe brought me a life-changing opportunity to live in a spiritually rich community where I lived for 10 years. I think I got probably the equivalent of 3 PhDs in spiritual living and soul manifestation abilities, because I was in that environment that allowed me to nurture and honor and start to unpack and befriend my uniqueness. So I think all of us, if we go deeply in enough, we can find what that is in us and start to befriend it and to start to become whole with it. And then have the courage to let that start to express in our lives. It is our destiny. And so we might as well start now.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, honoring our uniqueness. And it sounds like the easiest thing to do. And yet, when we're put into a situation where the outside world or the cultural conditioning may not match or welcome even that uniqueness, that's, I think, where we get to build those spiritual muscles and kind of find our way to be ourselves and kind of invent a new world that has space for who we are. And I think that's a lot of the business path as well, is where, it's like there may not be an exact template of or even example of someone doing what you want to do, because your uniqueness is like, oh, I want to, do this thing. And it's like, it doesn't even exist yet, and so there is so much, it's a spiritual path to be yourself. And so thank you for highlighting that idea, honoring our uniqueness. That really is in the base of it all, to reclaiming and claiming the power of our iconic essence. So Lori, I'd like to weave you in here. And you also went through a transformation in the process of claiming your iconic essence and kind of shaping your career to honor who you are. I'd love for you to share anything you'd like to share about your journey in claiming the power of your iconic essence.
Yes, so many layers. I think one of the things that's really been up in my awareness and in my world over the last probably 2 years, most specifically, has been around actually looking back even further in my life and drawing forward into this time some of the things, the skills and gifts that I had really refined back then. But when I embarked on my spiritual journey and my spiritual path, I laid down and put on the side and didn't really feel like they carried with me. And one of those pieces was that prior to my spiritual awakening back in, 2004, I was working as an occupational therapist, and I had that was a really big part of my life. I worked with children and really studied at that time even during my awakening, it was interesting to watch how the children developed and also how spiritually awake and alive they were and their ability to connect. And as I went down my own spiritual path and really began reclaiming my own self, discovering different facets of me, pieces that make me feel alive and fulfilled, and weaving that into my work and weaving that into my creating a business, I completely stepped away from my life in the world of occupational therapy. I just, allowed that to go, to the side. But I always found that when I was teaching things like intuition development and how do we connect with crystals and stones, how do we cultivate an actual relationship with the natural world, it was tools that I used as an occupational therapist that I was pulling back in and weaving into the language that I was using and into the practices and making connection through that way. So over the last 2 years, what I've found is that I've gone through this journey where I had a list of things I wanted to do. Like I wanted to have a podcast. I wanted to publish an Oracle deck. I wanted to, X, Y, and Z thing, master my art, travel to all different places, like and a strong list. And I realized I could check all those things off. And then I realized that there's this OT piece of me wanted to be woven back into my life now. And it's interesting because I went through the process of recertifying my recertification and like bringing that back in. And I don't have a plan of like, where is that going next? I just have oh yeah, that wants to come into my work in some way. And the process of doing that was really interesting. It helped me to see where I separated the two worlds, the science and medical world that I was really, really deeply invested in and immersed in for many years, and there's a beautiful spiritual world that I've been living and working in since 2008 really strongly, and bringing them together in a whole different way. And it's fascinating to experience. And I think one of the things that I'm really realizing through this process is that when I stepped on my spiritual path, I felt like I needed to just close the door on everything in my past. Like I needed to shut the door. And I think that was part of the trend at that time, in this kind of spiritual practice world. And I think in some ways it's still part of practice. But what I'm realizing is that when we let go of a really big part of ourselves, there's a part there's a fragmentation. And, this is part of the shamanic work that I do and other things to, have awareness around that. But I began to see it and feel it in a different way than I ever anticipated. I remember feeling like, oh, my OT world is done. And no, it's actually not. It's actually wants to be integrated in a new way. And we'll see what that way is. I'm curious. But it's interesting. So I love how there's all these different incarnations that have been spoken about. And I love how that storyline is here and present. And I think it's such an important thing to remember when we step on the path of a spiritual path or really embodying our iconic essence. It's important to really be mindful about knowing the timing of when pieces want to come in and when they want to come out, and knowing that there isn't really a right or wrong, and letting yourself step back from being absolute. Like, this is completely done. It is no longer here. And that may serve you for a period of time, but you may find that things circle back in later. So,
yeah, it's amazing. It's like another layer of union. And it's sort of like you have to go on a journey to develop some aspect to be able to bring back and find how it wants to meet up again.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see how that weaves in as things unfold. Thank you for sharing that. So I'd love to do kind of like a rapid fire on like an idea and just hear from each of you on an idea. So the idea is, or the question really is like, what challenge or like what's the biggest challenge or challenges you've had to face in order to claim the power of your iconic essence? So kind of take a moment to think about that. And everyone listening too, it's like, what challenge, maybe you're in one now, right? Doesn't mean you've overcome it yet. Maybe there's like a whole list you have overcome. Maybe you're in one now. What is the biggest challenge that's getting your attention in this moment that you have to face or you have faced to claim the power of your iconic essence? So I'll start it off and I'll just say, like, for me, I think it's like the biggest challenge is actually the mental neural networks of patterning, could be like conditioning, limiting beliefs, whatever, anything that just trips me up from just that flow, that seamless flow. Like I have to, doesn't always happen, but when it does, I got to like work with it. That's like a challenge for me of what I have to deal with, is just like how to navigate belief systems, alchemize them, work with them. So that would be my thing, I would say. Lori, how about we start with you? What's the biggest challenge or challenges you have had to face or you are facing?
I think one of the biggest things is timing on when to share things and when to hold them sacred. Like when is the right time to come out and express the shifts and changes and the inner evolution? And when is it time to just let that continue to stabilize, integrate, reorganize, and become embodied?
Yeah, that is actually a really good point. Because sometimes if you share something too soon, it's like a tender little sprout, maybe can't handle the wind that's coming, right? Which makes me think of like the idea from imagination to reality, Abiola, with your book, when to share. But so I'm curious for you, Abiola, what is the biggest challenge you've had to face on your journey of claiming your iconic essence?
I think that, more than anything, it's been self-doubt, doubting myself, fearing that I'm not enough, the inner fears of judgment, of being judged, and the inner voice of who do you think you are, basically. I have a lot of beautiful ancestral work comes to me and through me to be born. And along with that is always, the idea of, or the fear of, well, who are you to do this? Or who do you think that you are? Or, like you mentioned, my last book, From Imagination to Reality. This year I'm coming out with in June part 2, which is the divine frequency. And so it's very much like, okay, well, who are you to have a book every year? Or who are you to put out an oracle deck every year? Or how dare you, share that this is challenge, like all of those things, the self-doubt, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very relatable. And you know what? So I just want to commend you for facing that one down and doing your thing. Because every time a new project comes out, you probably have to face it down and just do it anyways. So I honor you for the courage.
I don't have a choice, like when we are, I'm sure that the goddesses here can relate, like when you're tapped in and you're riding that wave from source energy, it's like, okay, this is not about me. Like I may have these fears and these doubts and, all of this stuff here in Earth School, but it's not about me, thankfully, luckily.
Well, you're speaking to the idea of when you're deeply rooted in your iconic essence, you've got the source moving through you. That's what enables you to face it down.
Exactly.
And just say, I got to do this anyways. This is like coming through me. It's like baby's coming. Like we got to let this thing out.
Exactly.
So, Allie, for you, what has been the biggest challenge or challenges that you've had to face to claim the power of your iconic essence?
Complete ego death. Bankruptcy, and in so many ways, the bankruptcy was more than 12 years ago now, but I couldn't have discovered money dysmorphia and ultimately created a new model of financial planning had I not experienced the full range of success and not success in the eyes of, society and the world, because any model of financial planning needs to apply across the board. So I had to go all the way to the edge of nothing and also, go all the way to the other edge of success, and in order to be able to develop a new model and bring that into the world. And so I think that when we really are here for something big, especially to create systems change, as I know many that are on the Global Vision Quest are, we have to recognize that where you are is just a moment in time. And it's the story that you tell from this moment and the story that you create from this moment that really determines the embodiment of your iconic essence. And so I would leave you with the question of, what are you creating from this now moment? Mm-hmm. What are you creating from this now moment with the fullness of all the experiences that you've had? How can you make it as spectacular as possible? And even if it's a complete ego death, bankruptcy, rock bottom, as J.K. Rowling said, rock bottom became the foundation on which she built her life.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that other layer of union, because it's the wholeness. It's not just sitting on some pedestal and it's all great. It's like you've got the wholeness, you've got the fertile soil, probably from some death or some, challenge to deal with that actually allowed something to grow. And it just made me think, Ellie, for you, because you're talking about the king and the queen, but really kings and queens only exist because there's a realm that they are the kind of caretakers of. And when we have experience on every level of life, right? Like every level of from a struggle to a success, we can fill our energy in that realm, because we can like, oh, I have compassion for this. Oh, I understand that. I get that. So that king and queen really embodies the entire experience, because it's all the ones that they represent as well. Mm-hmm. So that just came in as like another whole layer of like union within all of that.
Yes.
For you. So thank you for sharing that and the question that you brought forth as well. All right, Anjel, for you, what is the biggest challenge you've had to face in claiming the power of your iconic essence?
Well, there've been a lot, Laura.
Fertile soil, yes.
My soil is definitely fertile. It's really kind of challenging to discern the biggest challenge, because at each phase, I think each stage had its own really big challenge. So I think I want to say that. And during the initial phase, the challenge was building my business while single parenting. And then we went through the phase of navigating my son's heroin addiction, which ended up in literally a near death experience for me personally. And then, now I'm in this season of recognizing that the biggest challenge perhaps has been my own lack of self-compassion. And really having put these enormous expectations of perfection upon myself through each of those phases that, that led to ultimately the ruptures along the way that created the transformation and the evolution. And so now I think the biggest challenge is probably the lack of self-compassion and perfectionism, and just incredibly unreasonably high expectations of who I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to show up in the world as a leader, as a woman. And I think that also includes some internalized misogyny and some internalized devaluation of the power of my own iconic essence. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Marta, for you, what's the biggest challenge you've had to face in claiming the power of your iconic essence?
So many challenges. I was a single mother of twins, which is my biggest blessing. I took care of my mother for 15 years on hemodialysis while I was building my business and doing, what I shared earlier. But I think the pivotal point for me in my life was in 2012, when I hit a moment where the biggest challenge was to change my relationship to challenge. When I changed my relationship to challenge, I made my healing and my transformation a non-negotiable part of life. Not just something that I do when the shit hits the fan or I'm going through some big evolution, as a non-negotiable part of life, to use it preventatively. I work on myself constantly, and I've been working on myself since I was 25. You can go into childhood trauma. You can go into ancestral lineage trauma, intergenerational trauma, past life trauma. It is so rich. When we build this into an energetic and emotional healthy metabolism, we build an energetic and emotionally healthy metabolism when we treat our healing and transformation as non-negotiable as physical exercise is to our physical metabolism. This is how we live as evolutionary humans. This is how we stop being in the collective chaos of constant transformation, and we really live at the leading edge. We honor our nervous systems, and we just keep going in there, keep finding what the next thing is, and it's rich. It's rich. If we all lived like that, the world would be a very different place. And I think that claiming the power of the iconic essence is an opportunity. It's an opportunity we get to live in that way, that our healing and our transformation are non-negotiable.
Beautifully expressed. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, changing our relationship to challenge. And I think a great way to think of that is just look in retrospect at something that you have, a challenge that any of us have gotten through, and how much of a blessing that challenge ended up being in clarifying something, strengthening something, reconfiguring something. You know, the challenge when we're in it is rough for sure, but it's the thing maybe that polishes the crystal. And so this has just been such a beautiful, enriching conversation. I'm so grateful for each of you and everything that you shared. Thank you so much. And just to, again, remind everyone who's watching that you can learn more about each of the guests here. In the description, there's a link and there's interviews with everyone here, and you can learn more about them. So check that out. And if you're watching on the website, the photos are below. You can click on that to learn about each person and see their own interview in that context. And then also, as things have come up, like I've already got some things that I want to make some notes about that just were like my next clue. You know, so as you're listening and sparks come up, like, you know, thinking about challenge in a new way, or, you know, the whole money dysmorphia idea, or, you know, different things coming up, notice what is relevant for you and how that can help you in claiming the power of your iconic essence. So take a moment after we get off this, if you want to make notes in your journal, I'm going to do that as well. And just let this be part of your vision quest of gathering the pieces you need for your next level. All right. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. And we have our afternoon panel that starts at 1. And I'm just so honored to be on this journey with all of you. Thank you so much. Sending you all lots of love. Thank you.